this computer. Again, I'm going to go through the steps: forking, cloning, branching, and then pushing. So with that, so I'm on my Platoon number guessing game. I'm going to fork it over to Tom Preetz, my personal GitHub. There it goes, making a copy. And here we go. All right, so it's forked over to my personal GitHub. I'm going to clone it down. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to zoom in. Oh. There we go. So I'm just going to list everything out. All right, I'm in there, git clone, number guessing game. I'm going to list everything out. It is right there. So I'm going to CD in the number guessing game. Then I'm going to open it up into my current VS Code window by doing code space -r space period. So here we go. We have an app that should say Mike Platoon. Update that. We have an index HTML file and a CSS, so we can design stuff if we want to. Okay, let's just kind of read through the README. So this challenge will help you implement CSS or HTML elements that use specific attributes to perform actions. Implement CSS styling using IDs and classes. Use JavaScript to interact with your web page or the DOM, document object model, that's spelled wrong. Use HTML or the DOM methods to edit, add, and delete elements on your web page in real time. And just overall, let's get creative. So you can kind of do whatever you want. So let's create a simple number guessing game. The computer will pick a random number between 1 and 100, and you will have to guess that number. The user should be able to guess a number until they guess the right number. You should be able to input a number and click a button to submit the number. You can figure out there's multiple ways to do that. You can use a form. You can just target that specific element, input element. The web page should inform the user to guess higher, guess lower, or tell the user they guessed the correct number. And the web page should list all guessed numbers the user guessed during the session. So your number guessing game will consist of HTML file, CSS, and JavaScript file, which we already have. And we already have this boilerplate given to us. All right, CSS. So step 1, add styles, CSS, and app.js to your HTML file. So I'm over here. I'm in my index HTML file. Now, how do I add my style sheets? Well, actually, before I go ahead and do that, I'm going to actually open up this index.html file into my web browser. So in order to do that, I can list everything out. I've got the app.js, index, and styles. So I can just do open index.html, and it was denied because my computer sucks. So I'm just going to drag that. Oh, what the hell? Why is it not doing that? Why is this happening? Hold on 1 second. I can open it up real quick. Look at my README, desktop, Mike Platoon, number guessing game. There we go. All right, open that up again. Okay, so now I've got my number guessing game, and now if I want to inspect it in the web browser, I can open up the dev tools, the developer tools. In order to do that, I can go, I'm going to zoom in. I can go up to here, go to more tools, and click developer tools. It's going to open up a side pane with a bunch of headers, elements, console, sources, network, performance, memory, and some other stuff. So inside the elements is where I can actually inspect my, essentially inspect the HTML elements, also if there's any CSS or anything like that. So right here, As I hover over it, it highlights to the left of what I'm actually hovering over. Cool. So that's what the elements. The console is just kind of like the internal terminal to the web browser. You can run JavaScript in here. I think Noah showed you that yesterday. Sources will show you the files in where, like, essentially the sources of everything. So you can see, here's my index.html. I think it also can show, yeah, anyway. So all the sources shows all the files that are linked to this HTML file. So there you go. And everything else we can cover a little bit later on in the course. Does anybody have any questions about the developer tools? Nope. Okay.
There's a few of those options I don't see on mine.
Yeah, that's okay. I have got some plugins like Redux and those are plugins that I have.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the first step was to link right here. Step. So link my style sheets to my index HTML file. Where does that go? Someone tell me. Jason, how do I import my style sheets into my index.html file?
Put that in the head in the link tag.
In the link tag. All right, so here's the head and here's the body. So it goes inside my head. So just think of the HTML structure as the head, just like a person. All the data goes inside the head. It's kind of like the brain. And then the body is actually just what shows up on the screen. So in here, I can actually styles.css. So that's the actual path to my styles.css file. And you can already see there's some data in here, some CSS already written. If I save that, I come back here, and if I refresh it, that's what the styles, the CSS kind of changed the design of my number guessing game. Next, it says I need to link my JavaScript, so my app.js file to there. Heather, how do I import my JavaScript into my HTML file?
Sorry. So under the head in the script source, you would put the app.js.
So script source, put the file, the location of where my JavaScript is located at. So app.js, that's the name of my file, my JavaScript file. There we go. And generally speaking, you can keep this up here in the head, or you can go down at the very bottom. What does the async defer mean?
That was that. So it doesn't run the JavaScript before it loads all the HTML, right? The
Yep.
DOM, I think.
Yep. So if my JavaScript manipulates or interacts with the web page, their JavaScript, if it's located in the head, all my JavaScript will load first. And if there's anything in my JavaScript that wants to interact with anything within the body, it'll run this before it executes the DOM, or before the DOM is mounted, or before the HTML is mounted to the DOM. So it'll try to access things in my JavaScript that don't exist yet, so it'll throw an error. So the async defer says, hey, before you run the app.js or any JavaScript, make sure that the DOM is mounted, or the HTML is mounted, and then run the JavaScript. So if I go here, if I open up the console and I refresh, my JavaScript is ran, and there it goes, it says console log, hello, my Platoon. So let's go ahead and start building out the number guessing game. So what I'm going to do is, whoop, that's too much. Build out some divs, and I'm going to say P, and it's going to say guess a number between 1 and 100, just because I want to give some instructions to the user because they might not know what that is, or like how to actually play the game. And next I'm going to create another div just to keep things separate. If I come over here, there it goes, guess a number between 1 and 100. I'm going to create another game. This one's going to be a paragraph as well. P tag says input a number below and click submit number. So I want to give some explicit instructions on how to input a number and submit it. So I'm going to refresh there. So input a number and click submit. Yeah, submit number. So I'm going to just create another div because I want everything to be on separate lines. And I want to create an input. So I'm a new developer. I don't know how to grab a user's input, how to grab or how to take user input in HTML. How to take user input. So we can do forms. It's one way we do it. What's going on? All right, my computer's going really slow. All right, so forms. There's this input tag. So I've got a form input. So I'm going to look at this input right here. I'm going to add this input tag right here and just see what that looks like. Cool. So I've got something I can type into. I can see it's text. Should this be a text or should this be a number? What if it's a number? If I change this type to number, I just want to see what that looks like. So it looks like I've got a little up and down arrows, but I'm just going to keep it as text now. So I'm going to take a number in as a text, and if I want to change it to an actual number, I can do that in JavaScript. The input doesn't have a closing tag doesn't have a closing tag like the P tag does or the divs. It just has a single tag like this. There's no closing tag. I can add some more attributes to it, like placeholder, like example. I can type in 50. There we go. I've got an example 50. What else can I do? The ID. Let's call this input number. And the name of this, we can just say like input number. Just if we ever want to reference this in a form at a later time. All right.
So you would use name to reference it in a form and not ID?
There's a couple of ways you can do it. If you wanted to extract the value of this input, there is a way you can access it via the name attribute. And we'll cover that more in once we get to React, when we get into like explicit forms in React. So you can be like event, and how you do that. Let's actually take a look. Event, no, let's do, yeah, I guess you can't do that right now. If in a form, when you click submit, you can say event.target.input number, like input number dot value, and it'll extract the value in this input. but we'll get to that a lot later. Then we have there, and now let's actually create a button that says submit number. I want to look at that. I've got submit number there. I actually want to put that on its own line. So I'm going to move that down. I'm going to create another div. And I'm going to move that up. All right. I think that's all we need right now to execute this game going forward. But I want to utilize CSS as also JavaScript to interact with this. So I'm going to add some IDs and classes as well. So for the button, I'm going to add an ID of submit button. I want to kind of be descriptive as to what this ID is, like what this actual element does. What's the difference between an ID and a class? Someone tell me.
ID is intended for like specific use for that one element, whereas class is for a bundle of them.
Yep. So a class can be used in a bunch of different elements where an ID targets a very specific element. So you can't really use submit button again because it's an ID, or input number again. Let's go in here, input a number below and click submit number. I'm going to make this an ID and just call it like game message because I'm going to change this. I want this to be dynamic and actually change as I input the number. And right here is where I want it to say like, hey, guess a higher number, guess a lower number, or you won. All right, I just want to see if everything works. Cool, submit number. All right. So now let's open up our JavaScript. And the first thing I want to do is have the computer select a random number between 1 and 100. So how do I do that? So once my app.js file runs, I'm going to say like, should I write a method for this? Yes. So I'm going to say let random number equals 0 initially. I'm going to create an array because it says create. All right, we've already done that. Think about how you would execute JavaScript function within an HTML. Okay. So let's create a function that generates a random number between 1 and 100 and store it in a variable. So I've got let random number, and part of the input or the requirements, the web page should list all guessed numbers the user guessed during that session. So I'm just going to say let picked, before I even get to there. Yeah, let's just say let pick numbers equals an empty array. And now I'm going to say let pick random number. I'm going to make it an arrow function. Oops. And this is where it's going to generate a random number between 1 and 100. So I can say random number equals math.floor math.random. I'm going to times that by 100, and then just plus 1 because it grabs the floor. It might be like 99.2, and then it grabs the floor of that. So the max value would be 99, and I want it to go up to 100. I'm just going to console log that random number and then also return it. So if I come back here and refresh it, I'm console logging it, but how come it's not? Can anybody tell me why it's not console logging the random number?
You're not invoking it anywhere.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm not invoking the pick random number function anywhere. So just below, I created the function, and now on line 13, I'm invoking it. So I'm going to refresh this. Oh, well, what happened? I'm going to refresh that, and there we go. I'm getting my random number being generated. Cool. All right. So there's my random number. Now I need to, when I type in here like 50 and click submit, I need to check, I need to perform some logic and check to see if 50 equals 80 and change this message to say, hey, input higher, lower, or that I've won. Also, I needed to list that I guessed 50. Interesting. So let's just take this one step at a time. So when I type in the input number and click the button, submit button, I need to extract the value from this input value. So when I click the submit button, I need to extract the value from this input. So I can do document. Well, let's actually do it on here. So if I just do document and click enter, that I get the DOM, the document object model, body. You can see everything. So there we go, input. There we go, document. So I can do, when I click this button, submit button, I can do document.get element by ID and grab the submit button. And I can add what is called an event listener, event listeners HTML. And we got W3 schools, we have MDN. So here, add an event listener. I can do it document.get element by ID, add event listener, and I can say what type of listener I want to add. Let's see. Do I have a list of event listeners JavaScript? So I'm going to say there. So I've got all these event listeners. So I've got an error, on load, unload, online, focus, focus in. These are all event listeners. If I scroll down, where are they? Cut and copy. So mouse events, aux click, click, double click, mouse down, mouse enter. These are all event listeners. So if I click something, it will execute a method. So I can do add event listener to the type, and then to do what? So like how to do an on-click event listener JavaScript. On-click. So I can actually do inline HTML, or I can do object on click equals whatever function, or I can do add event listener, the type of event listener I want, and then run the script. I'm just going to do this one right here just because that's what I want to do. So I can do on click equals, I just want to make sure this works, so I'm going to say console log button clicked. What questions do you have so far about generating a random number, assigning it to this random number variable, which I'll have access to inside this entire app.js file, and then also grabbing this element, this button element, adding an on-click event listener to it, and then the script I'm going to run when I actually click that button. What questions do you have about that?
Is there any advantage to either doing it like you just did there, or adding an event listener, or doing it inline in HTML as far as invoking a function, or are they all just choose which one you want to use, kind of thing.
It's kind of choose which one you want to do. Once we get to React, most of your methods are going to be in line like this, like on click. But just want to show you kind of other methods or other ways to do it. But yeah. So let's see what other questions you have. All right. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to refresh. I've got 80. So if I click this button, I just want to see document.getElement by ID, button clicked, or button submit button. Submit button. I'm going to click that. See, I've got the submit button. I can go up and do on click equals. I'm literally just doing this all inside the console now. Console log button, or I've been clicked. Cool. So now if I click that, it says I've been clicked. But now if I refresh that, everything kind of went away. And now it's actually loading the JavaScript in here. So now I'm actually executing this button clicked. So I'm clicking the button 8 times, etc. So when I click that button, I need to extract the value from this input. So here's this input. So in order to do that, I can say let number, because I want to assign this input value to a variable so I can check against it. So I can say document.getElement by ID, input number. I'm going to test this in here. So I'm going to do a quick refresh. Input number. So I've got the input number. So if I click that, but now how do I grab the value from an on-click or an input number? How to grab value from input in JavaScript. So right here, W3 schools, input text value property, get element by ID dot value equals. So I guess I can assign a value to it. But if I just do dot value, so right now it's 50 because I typed in 50. I do 65, press up, there it's 65. So I can let the number be dot value. Any questions about how I'm extracting the value from the input? So now I can just console log that number. And now if I refresh and say like 50 and click the submit button, I've got a 50 right there. If I do 65, I get 65, etc. All right. So now I can do some logic in here. I can say like, what they want me to do, they also wanted me to list all the guest numbers. Is that correct? So in here, I can say document. So in here, I'm going to actually create an ordered list, and it's initially going to be empty, and it's going to say number list. So I've got an empty ordered list hidden inside my HTML, and it's currently empty. And what I'm going to do is add to this list the number I'm guessing. So in order to do that, let's see. I need to create an ordered list, HTML. I just kind of see what that looks like because I don't know how to. I'm new to developing, so it looks like there's an unordered list and there's an ordered list. So I need to create a list, an li element tag, and add it to this list value or this list tag. So does anybody know how to create a new element in JavaScript?
Yeah, it should be just create element, I think.
Create element. So if I say like
Or-
let node equals document dot create element.
Yep.
What does that take in?
That will take that'll take an HTML tag,
Okay.
I think.
So I want to create a list element because where is it? Because I want to create one of these, a list element, because I'm adding to an ordered list. Let's just console log that. Refresh that. Oh, I gotta press 50. Cool, created a list element or a list node. All right. Now, how can I do like a dot, what's the node dot value? Can I do that? I don't even know. Node dot value equals number. I'm literally guessing right now. I'm gonna console log node. I want to see what that looks like. So cool, I've got a value of 50 right here, but it doesn't say 50 within the list element. So, anybody know how to do that? How to add a HTML value to HTML tag? Value attribute. Yeah, I don't know if that's it.
I think it's dot inner HTML.
Dot inner HTML. So I can do no dot inner like that. Let's see that.
Yeah.
So I do 50. Oh, cool. There we go. So node dot inner HTML. There we go. Now I actually need to grab the number list and add this node to it. So I can say document.getElement by ID, number list. And now I want to, so I've grabbed that ordered list. And now I want to add this node to it by doing .append child, because I want to create a child node of this ordered list. Because if we look at, here's the parent node, which is the ordered list, and these are all child nodes. So I'm appending a child node like so. All right, I just want to see if this works. So if I do that, I'm grabbing the value from the input tag. I'm creating a new list element. I'm assigning that list element's HTML to be equal to that number. So it's actually going to show up on the screen. And then I'm appending that list node to this number list right here. So if I refresh this, if I type 50 and submit, 50 shows up right here. If I do 65, just keeps adding to it. All right, we solved that part. But when I refresh, it goes away, which is okay. Next, I actually need to do some logic and do like, hey, check to see if this number. So I'm just going to return. So I've got that part down. I'm going to actually just create another method that says let check number equals some number. And then this is going to do some logic. So it's going to say like, hey, if number equals random number. So I'm not actually converting it to a string because I'm doing double equals instead of triple equals. So double equals checks by value and not by type. So it doesn't matter if it's a string or a number right now. So it says console log U1, else if number is greater than random number. I'm just going to do console log just to make sure all my logic is right.
I have a quick question, Tom.
Yep.
When we submit a number into that field, is it treated as a string or an integer?
As a string.
Okay, so that's
And
why we need the double quote or double.
And that's because the input, the type of what I'm inputting is a text. If I did number, it should come through as a number.
Mm.
So I can test that by do console log type of number. But let me just finish this real quick with the logic. Pick a higher number. And then, so let's just run that real quick. So if I do 50, oh, it actually still comes through as a string. But hold on a second. Let me see if I use the given thing, oh, it still comes through as a string. So it doesn't really matter. So it's always going to come through as a string. The only difference is it has this little up and down thing to increment or decrement.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah. All right. So here, I'm extracting the number from the value. I'm creating a new list node. I'm assigning that HTML in that list node to the number I'm guessing, and I'm appending that node to the ordered list right here. And then at the very end, I want to return a check number function. So it's going to execute another function. I'm going to pass in that number in here. So it's going to come in here, pass in the number, and run this logic check. So I can see the number is 94. If I guess 50 and submit, it says pick a higher number. If I guess 99, it says pick a lower number. If I guess 94, it says you won. But now I want to actually tell to the user, pick a higher number, pick a lower number, or tell me that I've won in this part right here. So instead of just input a number below and click submit number, I want it to actually say pick a higher number, pick a lower number, etc. So instead of you won here, I can say, let's see right here. I can say I'm going to grab this value right here, or that node. So I can say document.getElement by ID, game message, and then do the .inner HTML equals U1. Okay. And I can do the same thing here. Pick a lower number. Pick a higher number. All right. So if I refresh, I can say 50. It says pick a higher number. I do 75. Pick a lower number. And then I can do 55. It says you won. There we go. Does anybody have any questions? I think that covered everything. I can add some logic check to say like, hey, if number equals null, so if I just click submit, I can alert the user, please input a number. So if I come up here, if I just click submit, it's still doing that. So I could say, oh, return alert or refresh. Still doing that. Why is it doing that? Number. So log number. Dot value. Do type of. String when I still don't type in anything.
Can you do if number dot length?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to do. I have to length is 0. Number.length is not a function. Is it just length or do I have to execute it? Oh, there we go. Please input a number. Cool. So if you could add some error handling, but I think that covers everything. So I'm gonna do get checkout -b instructor solution, get add everything, get status, get commit message instructor solution, get push origin instructor solution. If I come over here, if I refresh it, oh, that's Tom Preet, so I could say, there we go. Does anybody have any questions about the number guessing game? Nope. All right. I'm gonna